right, welcome to the station, Kentucky's Conservative Outpost, the only program in the state of Kentucky that deals with politics and news from a conservative perspective, specifically Kentucky politics, specifically politics related to Louisville, or just because we're based out of Louisville. So, and so right now we're dealing with a pretty important issue in this country, and it's the abortion issue, right? So we just had a major court ruling in 2023 that overturned Roe v. Wade. Big issue. This is impacted society, both culturally and impacted people's lives, dramatically by that ruling. And so now the pro-life movement has pushed for that agenda for 40 years. It took 40 years for the Roe v. Wade to get overturned. They got what they wanted. They got Roe v. Wade overturned. And now, and all that meant is the issue of abortion is now is handled at the state level. It doesn't mean that abortion's outlawed. It just meant that there's no constitutional right for abortion nationally in the federal constitution. So that puts the onus on states to develop their own laws on abortion. And so many states already had laws in place, ready to go once Roe v. Wade was overturned, such as Kentucky. Kentucky had that in place. And so when Roe v. Wade was overturned, we had that law in place, and now we're very much a pro-life state. And so now, and I'm going to get to my guests here in a minute and have a conversation about just where we are now with this issue in this state, because this is a good example of issues that are being pushed back to the state. You're going to see lots of issues like that are pushed back to the state level, because at the end of the day, we can't agree on how to function anymore as a country, right? Let's just face it, Washington's pretty dysfunctional. We can't even decide who we're going to vote or who's going to be president without having practically a civil war. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be states are going to have to step up and handle a lot of these issues. And Roe v. Wade is just one example of how that could work and should work. And so that's why shows like this that focus on state politics is very important, because a lot of the decisions that are being made that affect your life are now handled at the state level and the local level, which is where it should be, because it's closer to you, it's closer to home. And that's the way our founders developed this country. It said, okay, we're going to have states that can handle most issues that affect everyday lives, because those states are closer to the people and they actually live in these states. And then we'll have a federal government to handle issues that are just handled at the federal level. Well, we've reversed that in the past 100 years. The federal government's taken over everything, every aspect of life. And now that we can't agree on what fundamental views of life are at the federal level, the only practical way this country is going to go forward is to bring issues that are controversial that can't be handled at the federal level back to the state. Well, isn't that great? Our founders thought of that ahead of time. So here we are in Kentucky. We've got to deal with abortion. And so we have a law, and I'm going to bring my guests in to help explain the current law that we have on the books. And then we'll also, in this program, interview the head of Kentucky Right for Life and talk to them about how, where we are in this moment. And so, and I'll introduce Jim Waters of the Bluegrass Institute, Bob Scott, my intrepid co-host, in his Jesus office there. I like the Jesus sign above his head.
I'm borrowing my wife's studio.
That's right. Oh, there we go. It's an amazing studio. I like that. So guys, I felt like that, and I'm pro-life, and I'm thankful that Roe v. Wade got overturned, but I think I'm like a lot of conservatives, a lot of folks in the pro-life movement were very surprised that the pro-life movement as a whole was sort of caught off guard with their victory. It was almost like a dog that chases the car, and he actually caught the car, and he didn't know what to do with it, And I feel like the whole pro-life movement is that dog going, now what, and because there wasn't a plan, and at least in this state, to really effectively push through the constitutional amendment that just failed last year, right? We had a constitutional amendment on the ballot that every voter in this state got to vote on that would codify, a pro-life position in our state constitution. That failed, and it failed immediately after Roe v. Wade was overturned. So it shows that we weren't ready. Our messaging was not ready on that side. And so I was surprised. I think you guys were surprised, and I still wonder if we have a good game on the ground to handle this issue at the state level.
Let me say this real quick, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
It failed primarily because pro-life advocates were outspent. It's absolutely. And most of it, as we've talked before, coming in from outside the state, the money coming in from outside the state to defeat the amendment. I mean, when you compare us to Kansas and other states that had a similar amendment that was also defeated, it was actually relatively close, 4 or 5 percentage points here in Kentucky. When you consider the level of being outspent, being depending on who you talk to, anywhere from 8 to 9 to 1. As far as outside money coming in, dark money, whatever you want to call it, was coming in. So I think it ties in what you were talking about. The messaging was muddled, a good way. The pro-life side, and certainly I'm on that side, did not do a good job of really shaping the conversation.
The governor making this a central part of his campaign with the young lady in the story.
Sure. There we
that was
go.
told. I think what their Democrats are pretty scarce in Frankfurt right now.
Yeah.
So they're
That's
trying
right.
to find any issue they can
Yeah.
to grab some attention
That's right.
away
to improve,
from these other issues.
That's right. To improve the Democrat
winner,
brand.
chicken dinner.
That's right.
You just summed it up beautifully, Jim. It's 100% politics at its worst, and that's what's going to be going on and transpiring is just to draw attention, and it did. I mean, I was at the Capitol yesterday when the Dog and Pony Show rolled in, and it was every media outlet, major media outlet in the state was there, and I know Adia, who we're going to have hopefully on here shortly, and she is trying to get on. She's been having some technical issues with regard to getting connected, but she'll state even more because she immediately was in a meeting with some young folks that were actually at the Capitol doing a rally, and we're talking, school-age kids that were doing a rally for life up there when her phone started going off from all the media outlets wanting her to comment, on it. So. We know the Democrats, both in the House and the Senate, have a very small or make up a very small minority. It's, we've stated before, the Republicans do have a majority, but it is intended to be a wedge issue. And that's, make no bones about it, moving forward this election year, the Democrats don't have a whole lot to hang their hats on, but they will be hanging their hat on that one because they perceived it was a win here in this state, and it certainly didn't hurt Governor Beshear in his efforts, to become reelected.
He's going to use that too, I think, to push for a national presence. He's already formed a pact to help candidates, Democratic candidates nationwide. I think he'll use this to push his presidential ambitions.
Right. Okay. Well, let's welcome to the show Adia Wuchner, the executive director of Kentucky Right to Life.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Yeah, well, Adia, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for your time. And boy, what an interesting time in this movement. This past year has been from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, just from a just emotional impact of what's happened. And obviously, the Roe v. Wade being overturned is just what this movement is prayed for decades, and it's happened, and there's a lot of folks in the pro-life movement like myself, and I'm going to get my headset fixed here, but a lot of people that in the pro-life movement like myself, we're so grateful this has happened. It's now of course we explained to our viewers that what that meant is just it's not that we outlawed abortion last year. It basically just allowed abortion to be handled as an issue at the state level, and so. And so in Kentucky, interesting enough, was teed up to have a major discussion about that issue as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, because we had a constitutional amendment that was on the ballot and it was voted on literally weeks after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And so
We are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify one's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
Well, you know, we went from this incredible, emotional when I was there with all the national directors the day that Roe was overturned, and then we knew in June, and knowing that we were working on a Yes for Life amendment here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and moving that direction. But what happened is, and we had really modeled our plan after Louisiana and Tennessee, who had already affirmed their.
Yep. Looks like we lost her there.
In their
There
constitution.
we go. We lost you there for a second.
Had
But
already-
you can keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can edit that. So yeah, but we did
Okay.
lose you for a second. So go ahead.
Well, who had already affirmed, states like Louisiana and Tennessee, who had already reaffirmed and affirmed their constitution was not a right to life with a high margin, like 62 some odd percent, right, of the voters.
Mm-hmm.
But that change, that overturning of Roe, the other side had watched, they were preparing. They had watched what happened in Louisiana. And at that moment, at the overturning of Roe, and as we were in the midst of our battle here in Kentucky, Kansas was the first state. We were watching those numbers that night. We're watching the impact on the rural areas versus the concentrated areas. So they had their first vote, and they didn't pass their constitutional amendment. I actually had a call the next day from people from Kansas saying, "Can you take it off the ballot?" And I said, "No, it's in Kentucky. It's put on and affirmed by the General Assembly. We're not a resolution state by the voters, and are putting things on the ballot." So I said, "No, we can't take it, and we've already got a plan. We're working very hard." But one of the things they said is, you will not be able to get ahead of their lies in the amount they will pour in, and so. We knew how much we needed to raise to win. It was calculated before. But the money that poured in from the other side on our Yes for Life amendment was 8-1. We were outspent. 8-1 that we know that was reported under election finance. It was tremendous, and the outside factors. And of course, but I had mentioned in a side conversation with you earlier, we get calls from other states saying, "Could you consult with us on our constitutional amendment?" And I'm saying, we didn't pass the finish line. We lost painfully.
Right.
And they said, "But you came 48 to 52%. It was not a slam dunk." I mean, that's pretty close to a 50-50 margin at being outspent.
8-1, yeah.
8%,
and plus,
8 times.
Yeah, and plus it's already difficult to get a constitutional amendment passed anyway. You already have a lot of headwinds there. People are just not instinctively ready to vote for something or vote for constitutional amendments in general. And plus the way this one was written was a bit long and wordy, and so there were some things that really kind of
34 words.
Yeah, our
And it
amendment here wasn't.
But there was we were number 2, but there was a 700-word constitutional amendment before you got to us.
oh, there we go.
So
That's what it was. Okay.
Yes, there was a very, very word. So it is how it worked out. As I sit here today, I don't believe that there is, we were reaffirming that there's not a right to abortion guaranteed in our Constitution. Legally, we all agree on that still. That was just a reaffirmation any more than there was ever a right to abortion in the U.S. Constitution, which the Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe confirmed, returning it to the states. If you look at our Constitution in those areas on privacy and rights, they mirror the same. But, as we go forward, we'll talk about the laws we passed in Kentucky, but what the judicial bench looks like here in Kentucky does not look as favorable as we move forward. But,
right. Well, so let's talk about that. So Roe v. Wade's overturned. Kentucky is a pro-life state. We already had a law on the books, what they call a trigger law that came into effect as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned. That basically had a pro-life position on it. That abortion is no longer allowed in this state for any reason, except for, I think, medical concerns, life of the mother issues. I think you can have there's a consultation with a doctor that can occur, and abortion can be allowed for that. But that's very reasonable. I mean, that is what it is. But exceptions such as rape and incest, there aren't exceptions there.
We are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify women's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
Weeks heartbeat. They're thinking those approaches need to be built with exceptions. I'm saying it's harder work, but we have to be in the changing hearts to change minds and save lives business. And
really, do you talk a little bit about January the 23rd? I think it ties in very well with what you were just sharing, the whole idea of love them both.
Well, for the first time, we have always had a rally at the Capitol every year, a pro-life rally at the Capitol. We were kind of quiet last year. They asked us, don't bring up anything new, and we didn't, and the legislators didn't. So we just continue advocating with other groups. There were a lot of other issues going on. But this year, it was placed really on my heart and soul. I contacted National March for Life, and said, because the idea is, remember, Roe was our North Star. For 50 years, it was the North Star of the pro-life movement. The new North Star, as we go forward, hopefully, I pray it doesn't take another 50 years or 49 years or 20 years, is equal life, equal protection. And we'll talk about that equal protection amendment. But also that to embrace, to love them both, with every woman, for every child. And so partnering with National March for Life, I licensed with them to kind of partner, and we could have done a march without doing it, but to partner with them a little bit, and to bring a state march here. So we were on a call today. We've got all different partners that are working with us. So on January 23rd, the theme is love them both, with every woman, for every child. Also, I want to say that dovetails with that, members of the General Assembly are working on legislation that reflects that we can do more for Kentucky women. Our own organization, as organizations, we now have a scholarship called Her Future, which comes alongside of women who have life affirmed and chosen to choose life for their babies, so that, and we do match scholarships so that we can scholarship them, because no woman should ever have to choose the death of her child over her education. So the General Assembly, lawmakers right now, as we have this conversation, are working. You'll see some legislation come forth that is very positive to that effect. Legislation that supports and comes alongside of women who may be victims of rape and incest. What more can we do for them? So without talking about them until those bills are filed, but I'm kind of excited to see those taking place. It's been an honor to work with some of the legislative members on that. But January 23rd, there is something for everyone, for every denomination, for every faith, for every age in the pro-life movement, to unite us in that voice of love them both, but to kind of rekindle us so that we can inspire our hearts to change and to do more work. So we traditionally, even in Washington, there's always a pro-life mass, which, you know, is kind of like, it's done at the Catholic Church, but everyone comes to that. So we're having a pro-life mass. We have youth choirs coming in at that. That'll be at Good Shepherd at 9:30. And then after that's over, then we will kind of regather again to form at 11:30 at 2nd Street and Capitol Avenue, which is 2 blocks from the Capitol, and that will form the march. There will be music, there will be youth, there will be signs, Students for Life, Knights of Columbus, Concerned Women of America, Family Foundation, churches, and I keep hearing from churches that are bringing buses in, or coming, students that are coming. We'll gather there, and that'll be kind of a rallying point there with a band and music. And then for those that, because they asked me, what if I can't walk? What about the weather? At 12 o'clock at the Capitol, folks can start arriving early at the Capitol, coming in and take their seat in the Capitol Rotunda. We will have praise and worship and rally to kind of kick off, but everything will converge as those that march up and make their way up Capitol Avenue, meet at the Capitol, and fill the rotunda with those that are already there for a rally that will begin at 12:30. Love them both.
So folks, get out there. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your point there, Dia.
No, I'm just saying, we're very excited about this opportunity. We hope people will across the Commonwealth will come out and join us.
Well, we're going to promote it all the way up to the event. We might even be there ourselves. So January 23rd, Love Them Both rally. And that's in Frankfort, and that's a pro-life rally. And listen, the legislature is in session right now, so they need to hear from Kentuckians, especially. Let me say this. Especially who needs to hear this: Republican lawmakers in districts where they feel like they might be, pressured by, folks that used to vote for them, but because they're so concerned about abortion, they might lose their seat. And so let's talk about suburban areas around Louisville, for example, suburban areas around Bowling Green, and
Lexington, Fayette County, exactly.
Yeah, these Republican lawmakers need to hear from pro-life Kentuckians to say, stand strong, don't go wobbly right now. This is the right approach. A pro-life amendment that protects the rights of all unborn children is the right thing to do, and stand strong on that. And so
it's at 12:30 at where again in Frankfort?
12:30. Yeah.
Capitol Rotunda, but they can get there early for the pre-rally at 12, and then those that will be part of the journey up Capitol Avenue will muster. It's really like they're at the BFW in Frankfort at 11:30. So we have rallying points along the way, a lot of support. The only thing I didn't do in the beginning, I was worried about how to feed everyone. And they told me that youth are used to coming to Frankfort and bringing their own lunch. So the mother and me, that was my only concern. Like, how do we feed everybody? And they're like, they're not coming for dinner. They're coming for this event. I'm excited. I think when you hear about the pastors, the music, the youth, we have a young man that was on America's Got Talent, and everyone coming together. But Tom, you said something that's important. Often when we've had our typical Kentucky Right to Life rally, we have speakers, but you also have the lawmakers. Each one says, well, I'm pro-life, I'm representative or senator so-and-so from a district. But we will hear from the pro-life caucus leaders But what's more important, and pastors and youth and women who have had their experience in rape, powerful experience in rape and incest in their own life. But what's more important is just what you said, is that the Kentuckians are there to inspire and stand behind their messages. We're with you. We're with you through those lawmakers that are in the trenches right now, because they are. I've seen some of the community surveys that have been done, the political polling, and so they're under the gun right now because there is such a push in polls to try to add exceptions, which again, as we just talked about, that's the beginning of incrementally trying to push the other direction.
Exactly right. We know where that ends. Exactly right. So, well, the mother in you is why you're the perfect leader for Kentucky Right to Life. So that's so that's well, we're just thrilled to have you here
I
on the
still
show
might make
today.
1,000 cookies for everyone.
That's,
But
hey, well, yeah, I'm sure they're
Where
gonna be
will
great.
those be at? I'm gonna.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, Dia, thank you for being on the show, and Godspeed, and let's all pray for a successful march and continue to defend life in this state. Thank you for all you do, and so, well, Bob and Jim, we'll wrap this up, and listen, thank you, and we'll see you there on January 23rd, and thanks for watching the station, Kentucky's Conservative Outpost. We'll see you next week.
We are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify one's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15